Hello, welcome to the audiobook of my Yu-Gi-Oh! 5D's fanfic Crimson Star Priestess. If you're enjoying this series, make sure to leave a like, comment and subscribe to my channel to keep up with the updates. The link to the fanfic is in the description below. I do not own any Yu-Gi-Oh! 5D characters. I only own my OCs.
I let out a sigh as I entered the lounge, feeling a bit exhausted after my duel with the professor. Shira was gone, but Yusei and Greiger were still sitting on the couch. Something told me Shira had gone to talk to Lazar about the upcoming turbo duel. I headed to the locker and opened it before removing my duel disc from my arm and put it in there. I removed the deck from the device and put it inside my satchel to keep it safe. I shut the locker and turned around, only to come face to face with Yusei. "Eep!" I exclaimed by surprise, blushing a bit by the close contact. "Yusei, don't sneak up on me like that!" Yusei cracked a small, amused smile. "Sorry, Estelle, but I need to grab my stuff for the turbo duel. Congrats on winning the duel." My lips formed into a small smile as my cheeks burned up. "Thank you." I stepped aside, calming my heart down, as Yusei opened the locker and picked up his helmet and a small portable toolbox. He shut the locker and turned around, looking ready to head to the garage where he kept his duel runner. "You wanna come and help me check my runner?" Yusei suddenly asked. I blinked, surprised by the offer. I don't know that much about duel runners, but if you just want my company, then I'll gladly go." Yusei smiled softly and I returned the smile before we walked out of the lounge and went to the garage. We met up with Tanner, who wanted to give Yusei some advice and warning about Shira. I knew Shira was going to be knocked down and be replaced by Hunter Pace, but I said nothing. I sat in a crouch next to Yusei as he did some final adjustments on his duel runner, giving him the tools he asked for. I had learned a lot about duel runners and engineering ever since I came to this dimension, so I had some knowledge. "What do you know about Shira?" Yusei asked Tanner after he finished tinkering with his duel runner and straightened up. Tanner crossed his arms while leaning back against a crate. "A couple of fellows I know had some run-ins with the guy a few years back in the underground duels. According to them, he wasn't exactly a fan of playing nice. Back then, he was calling himself the Shadow Reaper. Apparently, he never takes off those creepy robes of his. You planning on using Stardust Dragon?" "I'm saving Stardust for my duel against Jack," Yusei replied as he narrowed his eyes while inserting his deck in his wrist dealer. "And when I face him, he's going to wish he never gave it back to me." "You won't even use Stardust Dragon against me if we happen to duel each other in the final?" I asked Yusei as I straightened up. Yusei turned to me with a small smile. "I might make an exception for you, Estelle. I'm curious about your Clear Wing Synchro Dragon." "Yeah, me too," Tanner nodded. "That's a monster I've never heard of. Where did you get it?" I looked aside while trying to come up with a reasonable excuse. "I found it randomly in a card shop and felt attached to it." "Is that dragon your Ace Synchro?" Yusei wondered as he put on his helmet. "Would you be surprised if I said no?" I asked, turning my head back to the two men. "That's not your best monster?" Tanner raised an eyebrow. "Well, which monster is your best?" I smirked lightly. "You'll have to wait for the final and then I might synchro summon it." Tanner started laughing heartedly. "Soon you're gonna say your best synchro monster is an ancient relic just like Grandpa. You sure you two are not related?" I laughed at the joke, feeling amused by it while Yusei just smiled. He got on his duel runner and switched on the engine, making the runner purr with a smooth sound. "Good luck out there, Yusei," I told him, And be careful. Don't worry, I'll be fine, Yusei nodded as he rolled down the visor of his helmet. I stepped away from the door runner before Yusei drove off to the entrance where he would wait for his turn to drive out to the turbo duo course. For a second I couldn't help but worry a bit. Some things had changed and didn't play out as in the anime, so I hoped Yusei would meet Hunter and win the round. You wanna join me, Grandpa and the kids, Estelle? Tanner asked. The kids are excited and want to talk to you about your duel, especially how you were able to pull out that combo and synchro summon twice a turn. I think I want to stay in the lounge, I replied calmly. I'm not a big fan of crowds and extremely loud voices around me. Sensitive to sounds? Tanner questioned. You could say it like that, I nodded. The time I was on the duel feed was enough, but if I'm among a loud crowd, I feel like my head would explode. That's harsh, Tanner said before shrugging. But if you're bad with crowds, then I won't force you. But we'll see you as soon as Yusei finishes his duel, right? Of course, I nodded with a small smile. I grabbed Yusei's portable toolbox and walked out of the garage with Tanner. We split up as he returned to the stands and I walked back to the lounge. Greiger was the only one there when I came back. Even the staff was missing, probably thinking they didn't have much work to do now that the duels of the first day of the Fortune Cup were almost done and over. Aki had vanished after her duel, but I had a feeling she had already left with Sayer now that she didn't have to do more for the day. I went to the locker and opened it to put the toolbox next to my satchel. When that was done, I returned to the couch and sat down across from Greiger, who first had his eyes on the television screen before turning to me. You were in quite a pinch against the Professor, Estelle, the Muscle Mountain spoke up. I'm surprised you managed to defeat him. A small smile grew on his lips. Well done. Thank you, Greiger. I nodded with a smile before I turned my head to the television. I hope Yusei wins against Shira. I'm curious what kind of duelist Yusei is, Greiger nodded. He must be special if Goodwin invited a satellite to the Fortune Cup. Not that his status matters, but he must have some great skills. I was relieved to see the turbo duel ended up in the same way as in the anime. Hunter Pace took Shira's place and tried winning the duel with hyperspeed, but Yusei used his snail speed strategy and beat him. Just as Yusei was declared as the fourth winner of the quarter-finals to advance to the semifinals, the camera was turned to the MC.
We have a special announcement,
the MC suddenly called.
Yes, the rumors you heard are true. Listen up, first-round losers. Don't head for the exits just yet. Rex Goodwin, our master of ceremonies, has set up a losers bracket for the first round. That means if you lost, grab your deck because you might get a second chance to duel again.
That was unexpected, Greiger commented, but very generous of Director Goodwin to give the losers a second chance. Yeah, I nodded slowly. Greiger got up from the couch and walked past me. I'll be back before they announce the lucky duelists. I looked over my shoulder and watched Greiger leaving the lounge. I turned my eyes back at the television and saw how the cameras showed the Kaiba Dome while everyone was waiting for the next announcement of the losers bracket. I was getting worried. The duel would certainly end up between Luna and the Professor.
You are worried, are you not, Estelle?
The Crimson Dragon spoke in my head. I am, I whispered, relieved that I was the only one in the lounge so I could talk to the Dragon God. I'm worried something will go wrong and Luna will be by herself in the spirit world. I shut my eyes and looked aside, getting a bit frustrated. But I don't want to interfere with the chains of events and make a worse mess.
You are afraid your actions could affect the original outcome?
I nodded slowly as I opened my eyes and looked down on my lap where my clenched hands were resting. I want to help, but...
Just because your dimension revealed a storyline that is similar to this course of events does not mean you should not interfere. You should not feel trapped and stay away from the events that are meant to happen.
What do you mean?
What I mean is, you should follow your heart. I believe in your choice of actions you wish to do. If you want to intervene, then do so. I trust you will make the good choices. After all, you are the Crimson Star Priestess of my signers. They will need your guidance.
I sensed how the Crimson Dragon had left me alone to think through the conversation we just had. He said it was okay for me to intervene and help the signers, but did it mean I got his approval to mess around with the storyline? Well, I guess I kinda had already changed it with my sudden existence in this dimension, so what harm could I do? As long as I was careful with my actions, maybe I could help out. But what did it mean the signers needed my guidance, and in what? I wasn't exactly the typical leader person. I was more the type who followed others instead. I looked over my shoulder when I heard the sound of a locker closing. Yusei had come back after the turbo duel just as Luna was announced as one of the 2 duelists who would duel in the losers bracket. Luna's dueling? Yusei questioned out loud when he saw Luna's image on the television. Greiger had just returned from his business and stopped next to Yusei with his hand on their hips. I'm guessing they finally got the right kid for the match, huh? He must have been told by Lazar shortly after his duel about Leo and Luna. You know, by the end of the duel we had, I didn't think the boy was half bad. I can't wait to see what his sisters got. I stayed silent as the 2 young men returned to the couches and sat down without a single word. I glanced at Yusei, who had his eyes on the television, the screen showing how Luna was getting ready to duel. Yusei, I spoke up, getting his attention. Congratulations on winning that turbo duel. I guess none of us expected Hunter to sneak in and take Shira's place. Yusei grinned softly. Thanks, Estelle. Hunter almost had me there, but the turbo duels are about more than just speed. Still, it was a great duel. Then I guess we're going to turbo duel tomorrow if we meet each other in the semifinals, Greiger commented before looking at me. And you might duel the witch or the winner of the losers bracket, Estelle. I nodded before returning my eyes on the television, seeing the professor had entered the duel field. He had the same creepy smile when we dueled, but this time his aura felt more vicious, while his eyes showed no feelings. This duel could get really dangerous and maybe too much for Luna to handle. The duel was played just as in the anime. What surprised me was the professor used the same cards that he played against me and in the exact same order. Did he manipulate his deck and put the cards in the same order after he had shuffled it? Wasn't that cheating? Around the time when Luna played the field spell Ancient Forest, I noticed her eyes had grown hazy. I realized her spirit had traveled to the spirit world while her body remained in this world, and the professor looked very pleased with the outcome. Is it just me? Or is something wrong with Luna? Greiger spoke up, also noticing Luna's weird condition. She seems scared, I mumbled worriedly. Things got even worse when the professor tribute summoned Idol, the supreme magical force. Shortly after he was summoned, I felt my right arm throbbing in pain. I could also sense fear from Luna's spirit. It made my heart beat faster in worry. Was this my cue to try help Luna, or should I wait a bit longer? No, I couldn't wait anymore. I had to go to the spirit world.
Have you decided, little one? Will you go?
The Crimson Dragon spoke up in my head. Yes, I whispered so low that neither Yusei or Greiger heard me.
Very well.
Estelle's eyes turned hazy as Luna's before she closed her eyes. Her body leaned against Yusei's left side, getting the young man's attention. Estelle? The raven-haired boy asked in slight surprise as he saw the brunette leaned her head against his shoulder. When Yusei didn't get a response, he grabbed Estelle's shoulder and shook her body, trying to get a reaction from her. Estelle? Wake up! What's wrong? Greiger asked when he turned to the duo, seeing Estelle had fainted. Is she okay? I don't know, Yusei shook his head as he stopped shaking the woman's body. She just fainted without any warning. Let her lie down on the couch, Greiger suggested. Perhaps the duel she had with the professor was too much for her. Yusei nodded before he moved Estelle's body so she could lie on the couch, but her head was resting in his lap. Once they were settled, the young man couldn't help but think about Greiger's statement. If Estelle got exhausted by her duel, then she should have felt worse long before and warned him. Now she just lost consciousness out of the blue. Yusei glanced at the television, seeing how Luna had just summoned Sunlight Unicorn. The little girl's eyes were still hazy, as if she was in a trance. Was she and Estelle affected by something that the professor did to them? I opened my eyes and was greeted by an emerald-colored forest around me. The air was fresh and sweet, and its aura emitted a pure power, but I could sense hints of evil power. There were no doom monsters as far as I could see. Had they gone hiding from the evil force of the earthbound immortals? Är jag I spiritvärlden? I questioned as I looked around. I got no answer, but it didn't matter. I knew I was in the spirit world and in the ancient forest. I started walking forward, hoping to find Luna before she got hurt. I didn't have to walk for long before I heard a roar echoing in the forest. No! Luna's voice cried. Luna! I shouted before dashing towards the voice. The trees seemed to open a path for me as I spotted the familiar figures of Luna, Kuribon, and Sunlight Unicorn, and sadly the professor's ace monster. Ido, the supreme magical force, was leaning over Luna and her duo monster's partners, growling as if he was hungry and ready to feast. I ran past Luna and stood in front of her and her duo monsters, arms stretched out while glaring at the fiend monster. Get away from her! I snarled at Ido, the supreme magical force. I ran past Luna and stood in front of her and her duo monsters, arms stretched out while glaring at the fiend monster. Get away from her! Estelle? Luna gasped in disbelief. Why are you here? How did you even get to this place? I looked over my shoulder and smiled warmly at the girl. I came here to protect you, Luna, to make sure you don't get hurt while you're dueling the professor. Ido, the supreme magical force, didn't seem to like me standing in his way because he roared to the air and stomped the ground, causing it to rumble beneath my feet. Luna, priestess, ancient fairy dragon's voice suddenly spoke around us. Use Sunlight Unicorn to escape. Sunlight Unicorn moved so she was standing next to me and Luna. I picked up the little girl and put her onto the unicorn monster's back before I climbed up and sat behind her, wrapping my arms around Luna to keep her safe. Kuribon, who was equipped with Gestalt Trap and Immortal Homeostasis, flew into Luna's arms for safety and to make sure we didn't leave her behind. Sunlight Unicorn neighed before dashing forward, leaving Ido, the supreme magical force, behind in the ancient forest. I glanced over my shoulder and saw the fiend duo monster didn't even bother to run after us. I let out a sigh of relief and looked forward, only for the scenery to change in the blink of my eyes. The once emerald forest had suddenly wilted and looked like a ground zero with black naked trees and an ominous purple sky. Luna looked around when she noticed how the ancient forest looked dead. What happened to all the trees? What's going on? An evil force is attempting to cross the void and access the spirit world. Ancient fairy dragon explained. It yearns to corrupt and twist this place to harness its power for malicious purposes. Malicious purposes? An evil force? Luna questioned worriedly. That's scary. Sunlight Unicorn came to a halt in front of a dried lake. I jumped off the Doom Monster before I helped Luna to get down. Corriban flew out from her arms. Once Luna was down on the ground, we turned our eyes at the dried lake. There was a huge block of rock with the shape of a fossilized dragon engraved into it at the other side of the lake. Hello? Luna called nervously. I'm here, Luna, sealed away in this graved prison. I've been waiting for your return. I don't get it. What do you want from me? Luna asked before she took a closer look at the stone. That dragon? Hang on a sec. That dragon looks familiar. She gaped in realization. It's you. It's Ancient Fairy Dragon. We meet again. It's time to fulfill your promise, or your brother's spirit may be lost here forever. Water suddenly came flowing into the dried lake until its light shone upon us. Strangely, it didn't blind me, so I watched as the scene at the other side of the lake changed into a colorful area with soft green grass, flowers in all shapes and colors, crystal blue water in the lake, and several small dew monsters playing around with the little Luna, while Ancient Fairy Dragon watched over them with a motherly glance in her eyes. I realized it was a flashback of Luna's past when she ended up in a coma and spent a whole month in the spirit world when she was 3 years old. Where's my brother? Luna asked as she stood next to me, grabbing my right hand for comfort. Lost between your world and ours. Now, allow me to take you back to when you first came here, to help you remember the promise you made that would save this world and your brother's spirit. Luna and I watched the flashback of how the toddler Luna played around with the Doom monsters and made flower crowns for them. The past Ancient Fairy Dragon told the little Luna of the threat that was coming to the spirit world. The Signer Dragon coaxed her to stay with her and the Doom monsters since she knew Luna felt very lonely deep inside, despite having her twin brother by her side. I remember now, Luna mumbled. I came here several years ago and I made a promise. I said that I'd protect you, but then... The flashback revealed toddler Leo's desperate cry for Luna, which caused the toddler Luna to snap out of it. The little Luna shouted for her brother before she got up on her feet and dashed as quickly as she could. The Doom monsters cried for Luna to come back, but Ancient Fairy Dragon merely shook her head as the toddler's body glowed for a moment before she left the spirit world. But then I heard Leo's voice calling to me and... Luna fell to her knees with tears in her eyes. I quickly knelt down beside her and put an arm around her shoulders to comfort her. I heard him shouting my name, and then I just started running as fast as I could. I said that my brother was calling out for me, but I think I had been calling out to him somehow. Luna huddled closer to me, resting her head on my chest as I caressed her hair. I was scared. I was afraid I wasn't able to protect you by myself, so I ran. After that, I tried so hard to forget about you. I locked you all out, and then A growl snapped us out from the memory lane. Luna and I got up on our feet and turned around to see an ominous shadow several meters behind us, glowing in the same colors as the professor's fiend monster. Sunlight Unicorn and Kuribon stayed behind us, but I could feel the unicorn monster's breathe on my neck as she neighed a bit aggressively. Kuribon cawed with a scary tone as the shadow shape-shifted into Aido, the supreme magical force. Luna held onto my jacket, shaking in fear as a new but smaller shadow shape-shifted in front of the giant fiend monster to reveal the professor. I cannot believe that I have actually crossed over. I finally left my body behind. The professor chuckled before opening his eyes, revealing the facial expression of a madman. I have entered the spirit world. What do you want? Luna asked nervously. You are much more important than you know, my dear, the professor said before he noticed me, his expression turning a bit soft by confusion. You? What are you doing here? Wouldn't you like to know? I retorted as I glared at the professor. Get out of here! The professor returned the glare at me, but he had an amused smirk on his lips. So you are also connected to the spirit world and the Crimson Dragon. Very interesting. You are Estelle? Luna questioned. I never answered her question, but I had a hand on top of her head to assure her I wouldn't leave her alone. Now, be good girls and act as my guides. Use your signer power and reveal to me the secrets of this wonderful realm, Luna. Lend me your power, the professor demanded. I saw how the ground beneath his feet turned black before shadows spread around him, hunting to eat up the remains of the dead ancient forest. The shadows crawled at the dead trees and crumbled them down into ashes. I have no idea what you want from me, but you need to leave, Luna shouted at the madman. You are not allowed to be here. You heard her. Get out of here right now, Professor, I shouted aggressively. Leave this world alone, Luna cried as the professor didn't stop the shadows from consuming the spirit world. Several shadows that looked like arms approached us and seemed to be ready to rip us apart. Luna whimpered in fear and hid underneath my left arm. I glared at the professor, having enough of this. Försvinn härifrån! I shouted furiously before stomping the ground with my right foot. Just as I stomped the ground, a bright crimson light shone around me and Luna before the light was replaced by flames. The two of us and Luna's two monster partners were unharmed, but the shadow arms retreated when they bounced on the flames as if they got burned. The professor blinked his eyes in confusion before the madman expression took over once again. So, you are something more than a signer, Estelle. I should have thought so, because you didn't fall for my hypnosis during our duel. I did notice you seemed to communicate with your doom monsters. Who are you? Just a woman who happens to be connected to the signers, I retorted as I adjusted my glasses, and to look after Luna while she would defeat you and protect the spirit world. No! Luna cried out, tugging my jacket. I can't do this. I can't protect the spirit world. I'm scared and I want to go home now. Can't you defeat him, Estelle? I can't. I shook my head as I turned to Luna. You and the professor are still dueling in your real bodies, so I can't interfere. And if you leave now, Leo's spirit will be lost here forever. Luna, I hear you. Leo's voice suddenly echoed around us. That's Leo! Luna exclaimed in disbelief as she looked around. Leo, Where are you? Come and get us out of here. Please, Leo, I'm scared. Stop messing around. Luna. Luna. Do something, Leo. Hurry. I felt something wet next to my left foot, causing me to look down and see a small puddle. Luna, look down. Luna, down here. Luna let go of my jacket as the two of us crouched down in front of the puddle. Leo, is that you? Leo's image appeared on the surface of the puddle. It's me. I'm here. Leo, are you okay? I asked. Come on, get me out of this place, quick, Luna begged. I can't bring you back, but I saw your promise to the spirits. I was 3. I know, but you are connected to the spirits now. Don't worry. Know that I am by your side with Estelle. I'll protect you so that you can protect them. Leo! Leo's image faded when the dark sky began rumbling with thunder like an incoming hurricane. The boulder with the fossilized ancient fairy dragon began crumbling as blocks fell down and crashed on the dried lake. We are under attack, Luna. Now it's the time you must defend us. Ancient fairy dragon said. I don't know if I can, Luna said hesitantly. I straightened up and picked up Luna bridal style, catching her off guard. I ran to the edge of the dried lake and jumped down to get some distance from the professor. I had to talk to her without him interfering. Kuribon and Sunlight Unicorn followed me until we were in the middle of the lake. Estelle, Luna whimpered in fear. I placed her down on the dry ground and kneeled down to her eye level, putting my hands softly on her shoulders. Luna, I know you're scared, but think. If you ended up in the spirit world 8 years ago, it means you are a chosen one. You have the strength to protect this realm, unlike the other humans who were born with no blessed powers. You are special, you are strong, but you need to believe in yourself and in your dual monsters who are right here by your side. Know that you are not alone. Kuribon, Sunlight Unicorn, Leo, Ancient Fairy Dragon, and I are here for you. We believe in you. Luna looked at me with big eyes before she looked at her dual monster partners. Kuribon's eyes smiled, while Sunlight Unicorn had a tiny smile on her muzzle. The little signer closed her eyes to think before she opened them to reveal a determined glance. I'll do it, Luna declared as she turned to the fossilized signer dragon. I won't let you down, Estelle, Ancient Fairy Dragon. I will fight to protect the spirit world and save my brother's spirit. Evil laughter echoed around us as the professor appeared in front of us with Ido, the supreme magical force, behind him. He still had the madman expression, but he couldn't scare us now. Luna raised her left arm before a light appeared and shape-shifted into her dual disc. The card she had set and used during the duel appeared in front of her as Sunlight Unicorn and Kuribon took their positions on the duel field. Ido, the supreme magical force, joined them along with the professor's 2 activated spell and trap cards. I'm staying with you until the very end, Luna, I told the little girl as I took a few steps back from her to let her duel. Show the professor the light will always win. I will, Luna replied determinedly. The duel ended in the same way as in the anime, a draw. The hurricane that was caused by Luna's last trap card threw her, the professor, and my spirits back to our real bodies, leaving the spirit world for now. My eyes opened as my spirit returned with a bang-like feeling, causing me to immediately sit up and pant by the shock until I calmed down. "You're awake," a voice spoke up. I put a hand above my heart and let out one last sigh of relief before I turned my head to the source of the voice. Greiger stood up from the couch opposite from me and walked over to my side. While he did that, I looked around to see I was back in the lounge, but I was there alone with Greiger. "Where's Yusei?" I questioned. Greiger crouched down to my eye level. "He left us without a word, but I think he was just worried about Luna." He threw a thumb over his shoulder, making me look up at the television. The screen showed how the professor had collapsed after the duel, lying on his back unconscious. Luna was also about to collapse, but Yusei grabbed her before she could do so. He then picked her up Brida style and walked away from the duel field, never casting a glance at the fallen madman. The MC announced the duel ended in a draw, so neither Luna nor the professor would advance to the semifinals. I got up from the couch and walked out of the lounge to meet up with Yusei and Luna. I had to check the little girl and see if she was okay after the ordeal and if Leo was awake. I met up with the signer duo in the corridor. Luna was on her feet now and walking, but I spotted tears in her eyes. "Luna!" I called. Luna snapped her head up and smiled when she saw me. "Estelle!" She ran towards me and wrapped her arms around my waist, burying her face onto my abdomen. "I did it!" I smiled warmly as I gently pushed her away and kneeled down to her eye level, softly cupping her cheeks. "Yes, you did, Luna. I'm very proud of you." Luna gave me a teary smile as she put her hands above mine. "I was scared, but I knew you, Leo, and everyone else were by my side. You helped me win." "It's okay to be scared, Luna," I told her, "but you were able to suppress the fear and face the enemy head on. It shows what a strong girl you are deep inside your heart." Luna giggled softly before the two of us leaned our heads forward and rested our foreheads against each other. It felt so natural to do so. Was it because of the secret bond of the signers and priestess, or was it because of the natural bond that was created while we were in the spirit world? It didn't matter, as long as we trusted each other.